Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and this is our multi-tester review of the Brooks Glycerin 21. So here's what you need to know about the Brooks Glycerin 21 and what's different and new from the Glycerin 20. The Glycerin 21 is a cushioned daily trainer shoe that offers a softer level of cushioning compared to Brooks's Ghost range. The Glycerin 21 is priced at £165 in the UK or $160 in the US, making it more expensive than the Glycerin 20 when it launched at £150 or $150. It comes in medium and wide fits and is available in a GTS support model, which includes Brooks's guide rail support system. There's also a stealth fit version, which offers a more streamlined knit upper to sit closer to your feet. The big difference to highlight here is the change in weight. Our UK size 8 weighed in 280 grams compared to 301 grams in the same size Glycerin 20. It still has a 10mm drop, with stack heights are now 28mm at the heel and 18mm at the forefoot. It now has an extra 2mm of Brooks's nitrogen infused DNA Loft V3 cushioning tech and is placed across a wider platform than the Glycerin 20. Has changed things in the upper department with a new engineered knit upper designed to offer roomy and supportive surroundings. There's a new outsole here too, with a Rotac one in place that uses a mix of rubber and recycled silica, along with new outsole patterns to offer plenty of grip and durability.
First up, fit then, and I ran in my regular running shoe size, Brooks shoe size, which is a UK 8.5. Initially I found the fit pretty snug, and in our first run video I said that it was sort of nicely cocooned, as you might expect from Big Plus shoe. I think that's certainly still true of the heel collars, that big sort of padding and those kind of plush tongues and that midfoot hold. But as I've used this shoe more, I've noticed a growing space in the toe box. Maybe it's just having used it, I've gotten a bit more used to how it feels on the foot. But I think that's down to the stretchy uppers that you've got here. The toe box now feels very, very roomy and spacious compared to some other shoes. Maybe bordering on the baggy. Now that's no bad thing if you want to use these for runs with really long time on feet, even sort of pushing into ultra where you want that space. Room for your feet to sort of swell and flex and all of that kind of stuff. And everything else stayed roughly where it should, with good heel hold, decent pinch-free midfoot lockdown, and no troubling hotspots in any of my runs. So overall, I'd recommend still going true to size. Unless you like it really snug, then there might be an argument to try half a size down, just to dial in that toe box somewhat. But yeah, I found it fine true to size.
So fit for me has been overall very good in the Brooks Glycerin 21. I've had mine in a UK size 8, and that has been the medium width fit as well too. So that's the same size and width that I had the Glycerin 20 in, a shoe that I didn't really have any issues in terms of that overall feeling of running in it. No kind of problems in terms of comfort side of things. Definitely a roomy, spacious shoe. I think it's more of the same here. Got pretty narrow, kind of skinny feet, and in that medium kind of width fit, it's definitely on the roomy and spacious side. I think maybe you're getting a touch more volume in general in this shoe. I think it feels like there's a bit more material, maybe hugs a little bit closer to your foot as well, maybe a tad more supportive in areas of this shoe, but generally I think the experience has felt very similar for me. It definitely feels like there's some extra things in terms of boosting things on the comfort side of things, so I think you're getting a bit more padding in the heels. If that's something that you crave for from the 20, then I feel you're getting a little bit more here, and a slightly different design in terms of that padding kind of layout and design. The tongue is very similar to the one on the Glycerin 20, but you are getting some different laces, these kind of spongier laces that kind of remind me of the ones we had on kind of previous versions of things like the Saucony Ride, where again, it's all about taking that pressure off the top of your foot. If that's something that you felt didn't quite work for you on the 20, but to be honest, I had no issues on that front, then you are maybe getting a little bit more on the comfort side in that part and that kind of department of the shoe. But ultimately, I think based on my testing, I would go true to size. I think if you went for a medium width fit, on the Glycerin 20 and you were looking to upgrade to the 21, I think go the same size, same width. I think you'd be absolutely fine. Okay, so into that run test now. I'll start by saying that I really enjoyed running in the Brooks Glycerin 20. I think it was a standout cushion shoe for Brooks. I think it's my favourite Brooks shoe that I've run in, and I think it still stands out, even though it's been kind of superseded by the Brooks Glycerin 21. Now, a big part of that was that kind of nitrogen injected DNA Loft V3 midsole foam that kind of debuted in that Brooks Aurora concept shoe and kind of made its way into the Glycerin range, and I think worked really well. and made it a comfortable shoe, a kind of softer feeling shoe, cushion shoe compared to the kind of Brooks Ghost. But also, I think, protected as well too, and I think had a touch of versatility about it as well, which kind of maybe surprised me a little bit in terms of my experience. Now, the Glycerin 21, there is more of that midsole foam. What does that mean? Also, it means you're getting something that feels, a lot more plush than the Glycerin 20. I think it still ultimately is designed there to protect, make things comfortable, but also enjoyable, and those kind of shorter, longer runs as well too. And it's about kind of soaking up a lot of mileage in the shoe, like the previous Glycerin. And in terms of how I use this shoe, marathon training at the moment, so doing a lot of big, longer runs, kind of marathon pace or close to, doing some kind of 10k pace kind of sessions as well too, kind of track sessions. So this was really a shoe that I use kind of my easy runs, recovery runs, kind of base runs where I just need to clock up that kind of running time. I did try and run a little bit more up tempo in it, because as I said, I think the Glycerin 20 had some versatility about it. That was kind of an 8-minute mile, kind of 8:20-minute mile pace. So not my quickest, but ultimately just to see if it still had that kind of, versatility about it. Now, what I would say about the Glycerin 21, good thing is it's gone down in weight. I never really felt that the weight was an issue for me on the Glycerin 20, just because I think it's spread across, let's say, a kind of quite wide, kind of broad platform. There is a kind of broader platform, I would say, maybe on the 21. But I think, it's good that it has become lighter, because there's definitely been a trend for shoes in general, new generation shoes, to go a little bit heavier. In terms of that extra midsole foam, it definitely feels plusher, it definitely feels softer. I do feel like you sink into it a lot more than you do on the Glycerin 20. What I would say is I feel like maybe that extra foam has seen the Glycerin 21 for me kind of veer a little bit into that kind of max cushion territory. Which also we've seen Brooks kind of launch the Ghost Max, which is kind of their max cushion shoe. But I feel like that extra foam, what it's done it's created something that feels a little bit more max cushion for me on the Glycerin 21 compared to the Glycerin 20. And I think ultimately what that has done is taken away a little bit the versatility in the 21. It's a bit like what I saw with the Asics Gel Nimbus and the new Gel Nimbus, the kind of 25 and 26, where I think, you got something that felt plush and very comfortable and very protective, but ultimately it wasn't something that I personally would want to run more up-tempo runs in. And I feel like you've lost a little bit of that in the 21 with the 20. It's definitely plusher, definitely feels, there's that bounce there still, but, spread across that kind of wide, kind of broad platform. So it's, very stable as well too. You still get that protection. I just think, when I wanted to run a little bit quicker in it, I felt like it just didn't work for me. And almost having that extra foam counted against it in terms of that versatility. But in terms of when I wanted to run easy, when I wanted to run long, no emphasis on pace, the shoe felt very, very good to run in. As I said, recovery runs, easy runs, long runs, this is where the shoe really worked well for me. Outsole wise, now there's a lot of rubber on the outsole on the Glycerin 21, and there was a lot on the 20. So what it tells me is this is a shoe that is built to kind of, last long, and for me, I think I'd have no qualms kind of logging a lot of mileage in this shoe. There's a lot of rubber. The outsole pattern has changed from the 20. It's almost got unique patterns in different sections of the fit. Now, I haven't found that that's kind of changed or drastically changed the experience of me running in this shoe. Maybe just adds to that kind of more stable feel that you're getting here to kind of counter that extra level of foam, that bounce that you still get in this shoe. But ultimately, I don't think it's massively changed the experience. So I've had a good running experience in the shoe. As I said, I do think maybe by adding that foam and giving you a softer feel and still a protective cushion feel, you maybe lose a little bit of the versatility in the shoe. But ultimately, if you are using it for kind of those long, easy recovery runs, and I think the Brooks Glycerin 21, that is where it really ultimately excels. And I feel like, it's worked well for those runs for me overall.
So for my run test, I've now covered around 50 kilometres in the Glycerin 21. I've done a mix of pace and terrain, some steady 5 to 7 milers, just slower than marathon pace, a short interval session pushing half marathon paces to see if the shoe can move through the gears, plus a few 90-minute very slow plods on very tired legs to see how they feel when you're cruising / struggling. Now, I said it in the first run video, and I think there's a lot to like about these shoes. You've got the combination of the knitted uppers and the plush padding, makes for great step-in comfort from the moment you lace them on. Now, there's still quite a lot of shoe on the foot here, but that's pretty standard for shoes in this sort of higher cushion, sort of plusher comfort cruising bracket, that end of the market. And having said that, I think that somehow the Glycerin 21 still manages to ride lighter than you'd think when you first look at it and take it out of the box. The ride feels pretty well balanced overall to me. It's definitely soft, but not too soft. There's a good bit of resilience and return in that nitrogen-infused DNA Loft V3 foam. It does a good job of taking the edge off the road from your initial kind of impact when you land, but it's quicker than some foams to compress and then fully return or give you that return. So overall the sensation sort of is happily cushioned but not overly squishy and laboured, which I really like. I don't like foams that sort of take too long to come back. I definitely think that's helped by the sort of thicker rubber outsole that you've got here. I think stiffens things up a little bit. Overall, I'd say these offer good cushion comfort without veering into being too dull, flat, sinky or ponderous. What that means in practice is that I think you can quite happily tick along at a 7-minute mile pace, or I should say I could. That's kind of just under my current marathon pace, a bit slower. But for mid-length runs, it handled that pretty well at that pace. It might not be my first choice for that kind of run, but it coped well enough. So there is some versatility here. And I'd say it's soft and protective with smooth transitions and a ride that doesn't feel too leggy. One thing I highlighted in our first run video as well that I still felt after subsequently longer runs was that despite you've got a wide kind of midsole platform here, sometimes felt just a little bit of wobble almost within that midsole. So as my foot was sort of cradled nicely, but I got a little bit of movement in the midsole. That was perhaps mainly when I was moving a bit more ragged and lazy. So it's not a huge deal. And I wouldn't say that these are an unstable shoe, but I was aware of it more than in something like the Saucony Ride 17, for example. On a positive note, though, I thought the grip on this shoe was solid. I ploughed through some pretty wet and slippy cobbles, and the grip from this substantial kind of rubber covering was nicely reliable. And so far, I'd say, early days, but it's showing no signs of sort of wear and tear. Good durability on this shoe as well. And I think this will be a shoe that can eat a lot of miles and still be in good condition later into its use. Verdict then, well, this was my first time running in a Glycerin, and I was never 100% sure that the Glycerin model would be a shoe for me. In general, I prefer something that's a little less shoe on the foot. I don't tend to go for these kind of big, padded, thick, kind of plush shoes overall. I still kind of stick with that, but after my test miles in the Glycerin 21, I've been quite pleasantly surprised, and maybe I'm getting somewhere along the way to being converted. As an easy, low and slow shoe, I think the Glycerin 21 offers most of what you need. Great on-the-foot comfort, cushioned landings, decent protection for your feet over longer miles without feeling overly soft and sinky and too sort of sluggish. For me, it avoids that sensation that you can get from some shoes where you feel you're trading softness for immediacy. So you get that cushioning, but you don't really get the kind of quickness and lightness in the step. And that means that this shoe has some versatility to it, which I really like. Now, if you really need to go a bit faster, you can. That said, it's still not really a shoe that I'd use for faster miles. I'd only really lace it up for longer, slower plods. But if that's what you're after, I think this does it really well. And would it be my first choice for that? Still, maybe not. I think overall, I'd still probably pick a Saucony Ride 17 or maybe even the On Cloud Eclipse over this shoe, just because I think I find them a little snappier and livelier. And I might shoot for the Ghost Max for the all-out comfort on slower plods too, mainly because it's cheaper. But for me, the Glycerin 21 does a lot right, and I think it will be a happy workhorse for plenty of runners who like things a bit more comfy and trad.
So my verdict on the Brooks Glycerin 21 is that it feels like a pretty solid update on the Glycerin 20. I think ultimately, if you like the idea of a lighter version of that shoe, and a shoe that kind of takes that midsole foam and puts more of it under your feet, then that's ultimately what you're getting with the Glycerin 21. And I still think it's best designed for those kind of shorter, long, slow, easy recovery style kind of speeds where I think this shoe works best. It's stable, protective, gives you a little bit of bounce there to keep things enjoyable as well too. Also, you have those kind of multiple kind of width options there to make sure you get a good kind of spacious fit though. I think the fit in general is going to be good for most people. I think, from a kind of cushion shoe point of view, definitely veers more on that kind of plush side now. So things like the Asics Gel Nimbus, things like the New Balance 1080 V13 as well too, where I think when you look at those two shoes compared to this, I think this feels most similar to the Gel Nimbus, where I think with the 1080 V13 you're getting something that's lighter in comparison. I think you're getting a nicer rocker. There's no real kind of rocker feel in the shoe to kind of get you a bit kind of nicer and kind of smoother through those kind of transitions, which just makes it a little bit easier to maybe run a little bit quicker in something like the 1080 V13, where I think with this it's very similar to the Gel Nimbus for me. Now, as I said, I think it's lost a touch of versatility about it, and I think if you wanted a more versatile cushion shoe, then I think you're going to have to look at things like the Saucony Triumph range. I think also the Puma Velocity Nitro 3 as well too. Now those fits I would say are a little bit more restrictive, and I think, you know, not as roomy and spacious as things like the Brooks Glycerin 21, but ultimately will give you something that can work at slower and easy paces as well too, and still give you that kind of softer feeling underfoot as well, like you do get on the Glycerin 21. So as I said, I think it is a good update. I think if you wanted a softer feeling Glycerin 20, one that is still designed best for eating up a lot of time your feet, you know, not necessarily at your quicker paces, and, you know, using it for your recovery runs in between your kind of speed shoes, then absolutely you can do that job. It's a little bit more expensive. Is it the best cushion shoe out there? Is it the best and lightest shoe out there? Maybe not, but I think if the Glycerin has worked for you, particularly Glycerin 20, I said you want that extra level of cushioning and something for those types of runs that I've described, then I think it's going to serve you well overall. Okay, so there you have it. That is our multi-tester verdict on the Brooks Glycerin 21. Now, hopefully that video has helped you get a better sense if this is a cushion shoe that you need in your life. Now, if you've got any questions about this shoe, do let us know in the comments as always. Like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.